Welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Do you ever feel like you've missed something? Like there's this show or a book or something that everybody's talking about and you just completely missed it? Yeah, it happens, okay? And there are a number of these types of things that I know I've missed over the years. And sometimes I just get the urge to go back and figure out what all the hype was about, right? And I'm sort of in that groove right now where there are there are a number of things that I'm going back to watch. So right now I'm going and I'm watching the 1992 version. I guess it was the original version of the Sailor Moon anime, which I'd always heard people talk about Sailor Moon. Right, it's always been part of the anime discussion. Right, sure, there's new modern stuff. Okay, Attack on Titan or um, My Hero Academia or all that stuff, right? But Sailor Moon has just been sort of bobbing along in the background forever, right? So fine, okay, I found a way that I could watch it that doesn't involve piracy and stuff like that. It's like, all right, you know what? Fine, I can watch Sailor Moon, and it's been fun. It's got some issues, but this is not a really late movie review of Sailor Moon. The other show, I may do that one of these days, but today is not that day. The other show I've been watching is Stargate SG-1. Now, obviously, those are two very different shows. Now, Stargate SG-1 is one that I've seen an episode of here and there, and I enjoyed, but I've never seen the whole series. It was just, it was one of those shows that was on at a really bad time in my life for me to be able to watch TV. Okay. Because at the time, I think I might have still been in college. I was definitely a parent of young children, and working and I just didn't have time to watch Stargate SG-1. Like I said I've caught a few episodes for a while when it was in syndication, but it's just hard for me to want to schedule my evenings around when TV shows are on. I just had other stuff going on. So I've missed most of the series. And as I said, Sailor Moon, I'd never seen anything of except the occasional meme or cosplay or something. Okay. But, there are services now, Tubi TV or Pluto TV. Tubi's got Sailor Moon, Pluto's got Stargate SG-1. And yeah, they're ad supported TV systems, right? They're what they call fast networks, free ad supported television. Okay, fine, but it's still on demand, and I could finally catch up with them. Now, Pluto's got a weird ad on it. I just don't understand. It's like it starts with a really like weird sports kind of maybe highlight, and then throws another commercial on. It's just bizarre. I don't know what they're trying to do with that one, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is, though, I can go back and catch up on some of the stuff that I've missed. Now, this isn't the first time that I've had the desire to go back and do this, right? Oh, 20 something years ago. I know it's been forever. I'm old, I admit this. But a long time ago, in a bookstore far, far away, I hunted down the classic monster stories. And actually, a lot of them are old enough. I found them on the Gutenberg Project because they're out of copyright and they're in public domain. So you can just download an ebook and read Bram Stoker's Dracula or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Jekyll and Hyde, right? These are some of these stories that I've heard about all the time, right? Dracula has been in the modern movies, I guess, forever, right? Frankenstein as well. But I'd heard through the grapevine, at least, that Frankenstein in the movies was nothing like the books. It's like, or book singular. So it's like, okay, let's let's test that. And oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, right? Because in the movie, Frankenstein's monster is sort of a dumb zombie angry beast. Okay, yeah, that's not at all what the monster is. So yeah, it was great to go back and read those. And yeah, same with Dracula. That was a very it was an interesting story, okay? But it definitely spins the powers that Dracula has a lot differently. Things are the modern tellings of Dracula are so much different from what you get out of that book. Okay. And then a few years after that, um I don't know what it was that triggered it, but I went and started reading Tarzan, right? The Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan books. Now, again, Tarzan is a character. I'd seen some of the movies that had come out for him. They used to show them on I don't know, it was a Sunday morning. It was one of those, hey, we're gonna put a movie here because nobody's watching this time anyway, and so it'll just be whatever movie we can get for cheap, right? And the Tarzan movies were often that. So I knew a little bit, right? I knew who Tarzan was, but that's about it. I want to go back and see what has made this character so enduring, right? Why is it they keep wanting to make Tarzan movies? I mean, they have it for a while, but it keeps floating around in the background of something that, hey, yeah, we should go back and revisit this, right? I mean, Disney made a really horrible Tarzan adaptation. The movie itself was fine. It's a horrible adaptation of Tarzan. Okay. Same with Hercules. Hercules was a fine movie. Oh, completely different from what Hercules is in the Greek myths. But, still. Of course, reading Tarzan then got me into the John Carter of Mars series. Now, I only read the first 3 or 4 books in that series, but I'm starting with, I think it's The Princess or A Princess of Mars. Fabulous. Again, you have to deal with a little bit of the language of the books being a little bit archaic. I mean, they're not that old, okay? But there's definitely a different style of storytelling in both Tarzan and John Carter, since there's the same author, than you might get in a modern novel, okay? But it was fascinating reading Tarzan because, one, you're 2 books in before Tarzan actually connects with Jane. I mean, he meets her, but you just, yeah, it's the second book before he decides to actually go and find her and connect. Because yeah, she doesn't stay in the jungle with him. And Clayton, who Disney's Tarzan made out to be this supervillain, no, he's just happened to be Jane's fiance, and was actually a nice guy, up until a point, and that point being when he is nearly dying of dehydration because they're stranded at sea. Okay, but otherwise, Clayton was a fine guy. He was never a villain, right? But it was one of those things that's like, I've got to go back. I've got to go back and figure out what is going on. And there are a few others, like um, Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, right? I've heard people talk about the Merchant of Venice for years. It's one of Shakespeare's classic comedies. Never read it, never seen it, never got around to it. It's just one of those things that, oh sure, I've seen Romeo and Juliet plenty of times, and The Taming of the Shrew, and Much Ado About Nothing, right? I've there's a bunch of those that I've seen, But The Merchant of Venice was just one I never got around to. So it was great. I sat down, got to read The Merchant of Venice. Other than being aggressively anti-Semitic at times, it's a great play. Okay, and it's fun. I mean, all the Shakespeare I studied in college in high school, it was Julius Caesar and of course Romeo and Juliet. It's all the serious stuff. We never really looked at Shakespeare's comedies. I mean, I can understand why my teacher didn't want to do Taming of the Shrew. It's some people might consider it somewhat anti-feminist, perhaps. So I don't know. I don't. There is a suppose Kate's final speech there at the end might be that, but still, it's kind of fun. And then what was it? A year or so back, I read Pride and Prejudice. Now, I'd heard a lot about Pride and Prejudice because a lot of people were just prejudiced against it, I suppose. And it was, my dad always contended that the only reason this became a classic is because there was nothing else to read. I'm not sure I would go that far, but yeah, it was one of those things. I've heard about it a lot. I remember watching. You ever see the movie You've Got Mail? Right. It's Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and she owns a little corner bookstore, and he owns the bookstore Megamart type chain. Well, they ended up having a discussion about Pride and Prejudice, and I, didn't get any of it. Right? It was one of those things that I just, it comes up a lot, and I just knew nothing about it. So finally, I decided to go read it. And there's a really late movie review, or really late movie. I did a video on it. I did a podcast on it a while back mostly about liking what you want to like, despite or what other people think. Right? Because it turns out, well, I don't think I'm ever going to read Pride and Prejudice again. I had a much different view of that book after having read it myself. Okay, so there's a bunch of those types of things that I missed. Right? Because the reality is, you can't watch everything. You can't read everything. There's just too much stuff that has been produced by humanity over the course of its existence to read it all or to watch it all. Even if you just limit yourself to movies, there's just too much. Okay. Now, I love that the internet and sort of modern society makes it easier to catch up on some of those things that we may have missed. Right. I really should go do a really late movie review of the 1930s King Kong, because Kong has seen a resurgence through the that whole new Godzilla kaiju multiverse dealy bob that Legendary Pictures has been doing, right? But why? What has brought King Kong why has King Kong had so many remakes and has been brought as sort of this epitome of kaiju or something? I mean, King Kong is sort of an American creation, so I don't know if kaiju is the right word. Still, giant monster thing. Okay, why? Right? But it's great to be able that we have the opportunity, that it's so much easier to be able to find this stuff, right? And I love that I can go back and read or see these bits of media for myself, right? Because it's really easy to forget. As a society, we could easily forget the 1930s King Kong, right? With the massive CGI slugfests that have been the modern Kong movies, to go back to that 1930s stop motion is and see where Kong came from, right? It's just a trip, man. It is an experience. And yeah, it's the 1930s. So, oh yeah, there are definitely aspects of it. It's like, wow, that looks terrifically fake because yeah, what they had was stop motion. It's 1933, right? Yeah, people complain that the CGI looks a little off. Well, dude, look at stop motion King Kong, right? Where the reviews of Kong said how realistic it looked because his fur moved, and that's because as they kept moving the that puppet to do the stop motion, of course they ruffled the fur that was on the model. So yeah, okay, cool. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of it that looks so bad to modernize, but you can see sort of what's enduring about Kong by going back and watching that original, right? And you can go back and see, why is Frankenstein such a compelling story? And why do I keep getting the stupid thing wrong? Okay, why do I keep screwing up the monster? Right? That I don't have an answer to. Okay, but this is part of the reason I like to do the really late movie reviews here on the podcast, because I love to share my excitement and my wonder sometimes at these things that I've missed. And yeah, there are things. I don't go to movie theaters anymore. I don't enjoy the theater experience, at least especially down where I live, because the theater audiences down here are just horrible. But you know, when I get to see it, I get to watch it. I'm really excited to share what I liked about it. Sometimes, yes, I did see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. No, I did not do a really late movie review about it because I didn't like it. And I don't necessarily want to dwell on the things that I don't like, because I want to share that excitement. Here's something that I missed, or here's something you may have never heard of or never seen or whatever. Let's come back to it and look at it and see, hey, this was awesome. Come enjoy this thing that was awesome with me, right? And you know, I'm kind of getting that. Like I said with Sailor Moon, it is, some of it is exactly what I expected. It is a 1990s anime for kids. Okay, now one of the great things about anime is that it was very often, a lot of it was not specifically, or maybe I should rephrase that, it wasn't only for kids. Okay, and sometimes the stories are a little bit more grown up. Yes, sometimes the anime is a little more adult in every sense of that word. Sorry, Sailor Moon has a couple of those moments like, really? Does that need to be in a kid's show? But still, this is a little creepy. She's 14 and he's an adult dude. Okay, admittedly from the Dark Kingdom, but should they really be hooking up? Anyway, so but I can see why people have liked the show. I can see why Sailor Moon has had this following for a while, right? And it's kind of the same way with like Power Rangers. Every once in a while, you go back and I did go back and rewatch the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, at least some of it. And yeah, definitely there are parts of the show that it's like, okay, yep, I remember watching this in high school because I think it came out when I was in high school. And yeah, I could have done without any of this nonsense. But a lot of the rest of it was cool. Although the fact that Rita Repulsa's voice is horrific. Oh, painful. It's nails on chalkboard. Painful. Okay. You can see why so many of these things endure like they do. Right? Why is the Wizard of Oz still a thing? Okay. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Why are we watching Wicked, right? A musical backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West, why? Why did get that play originally get made in the first place? What made that so compelling? I said, okay, have you gone back and watched the original Wizard of Oz? Okay. Or read the books even more, right? Because sure, you could watch The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland and all of that crowd, right? And that was one of the first movies in color and has one of the greatest transitions, I think, for a movie, because it's got Dorothy's whole life in black and white in Kansas. And when you read the book, that's almost exactly how he describes it. Bauman in The Wizard of Oz, the whole time Dorothy is in Kansas, he kind of describes everything as just sort of brown. Okay. I don't quite remember exactly how he put it. It's been a while since I've read the book, but yeah, it is. And so in the movies, everything is black and white. So seeing that whole bit still in black and white, not a surprise. But when she opens that door into Oz and it is bright and colorful, it is such a transition in storytelling in a lot of ways. It is a visual explosion of, no, Dorothy is not in Kansas anymore, because look at this. The bright yellow of the yellow brick road and the bright greens of everything. And yeah, they gave her ruby slippers instead of silver slippers, because the red just popped against that yellow road. Okay. And that is awesome to see. And sure, you can get the Wizard of Oz story. The movie The Wiz, that starred Michael Jackson and as the Scarecrow. I forgot who played Dorothy, but yeah, you can go watch that and still get the Wizard of Oz story, and it can be fun. But you go back to the original books and you realize that there's more depth to those characters, okay, which is often the case when you read the books that a movie was made from, right? Because what you learn is that the characters, like the Scarecrow, was never an idiot. He's sitting there thinking he doesn't have any brains, but he is an intelligent person who has no confidence. Or the Cowardly Lion in the book, sure, he definitely goes as the Cowardly Lion, but when he gets captured by the Wicked Witch of the West, he attacks her at every chance he gets, because he was brave. He did have courage, right? The Wizard of Oz, yes, was a scam, right? But they didn't suddenly get brains or a heart or courage because he gave them a diploma or a pocket watch or a medal. They had that, and they discover it for themselves. So when they finally get back to the wizard, he's acknowledging what they have learned. That is a fascinating story, right? So going back to read the book that spawned it all, it's like, this is why The Wizard of Oz is loved, right? And you go back, and I've read a lot of the Oz books. I haven't read all of them, but they're fun, right? So there's a reason that they keep coming up again in our cultural zeitgeist. There's a reason why we keep coming back to this world, because there's some great things to it. I love being able to go back and find this stuff, right? Right, because I'm in my late 40s, okay? I grew up through the 80s, and if you missed a show, you may never see it again, right? So let me give you a great example. in the late 80s, early 90s, there was this wonderful show, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Okay? Now, I watched the reruns of the original series because that was a thing, and my dad had taped a bunch of those off of TV, and so I'd been rewatching those all the time. So Next Gen comes on, and we're watching it. And yeah, there's some aspects. The first season, it took them a little while to find their groove, right? Because when Roddenberry started up the Next Gen, when Roddenberry started up the Next Generation, he did not cast one of the most important characters of a Star Trek episode, and that's your engineer, right? Yes, you obviously you need to have your captain and your first officer and a medic and right, helmsman or the bridge crew, right? But you got to have a freaking engineer because something is always blowing up, or they have to adjust the polarity of the warp field or whatever, right? Okay, so it took them a while. All right, but it moves on, and we're watching this series, and it's great. All right, so here we come into season 3, and season 3 is chugging along, and it's been doing great, and I'm actually kind of liking Picard now, because for a long time I was hoping that Picard would retire and we could follow Captain Riker and the crew of the Enterprise, right? But you know what ends season 3? The show The Best of Both Worlds. And it is the Borg. The Borg have come back because we had the one episode where Q bounced them out into the Delta Quadrant and they meet the Borg and then he pulls them back. Okay, so the Borg are invading and they capture Picard, right? It's this story. Well, the season ends with the Enterprise executing a desperate attack to try to defeat the Borg. And now season 4 starts with the conclusion of that story, right? Because that was typical of seasonal shows, is you'd end one season on a cliffhanger. You would end one season on a cliffhanger, and then get people to watch the second season so they could finish whatever that story was. I missed that next episode. I don't know what was going on, because we watched it regularly. My dad and I would sit down and we'd be sure we were there. But, I had stuff going on, right? I did have a life. I had, I don't know if it was visitation with my mom or what, because the joy of being the child of divorced parents. But whatever it was, I missed that episode. I finally caught Star Trek again. Okay, I think it was episode 2. Okay, where they've kind of reset, because episode 2 is actually an interesting character study too, of Picard going home to his family chateau and winery or vineyard, I suppose, in France, and meeting his brother and all of this fun stuff. Okay, very, very character-driven show. Interesting episode, but whatever. But it was years before I found I got to see that episode. Heck, I had a dream. I thought it was real. I had this memory. I thought it was the how that show turned out. And no, it turns out it was just a dream that I had. And it was just, I was convinced that was what that episode actually was. Now, it turns out the Borg did not bring back Kirk and Spock to help the Enterprise Next Gen crew. Would have been cool, but no, that's not actually what happened. And boy, there were definitely those, as part of those things, man. If you missed an episode, maybe they would show it again in over the summer reruns or something, if you were lucky. But no. And so I love that it is so easy now. Sometimes, heck, you get a lot of complete TV series now for like $40, which is awesome. But the reality is, humanity has created a lot of great, and admittedly not so great, works of art. And it would be a shame if a lot of that became forgotten. Yeah, now some of it probably deserves to be forgotten, let's be frank. But to go back and some of those movies like the comedies that I don't know if they don't hang on, they don't have that enduring thing that some of the Oscar bait has, because everyone will remember the Oscar bait, right? Or these are the movies that won Best Picture. Does everyone go back and rewatch Spaceballs, or Robin Hood Men in Tights, or Young Frankenstein, or now I'm just naming Mel Brooks movies, or Airplane, right? Or Dragnet. Wait, man, that's an amazing movie, right? I mean, the TV show was fun to begin with, and the movie makes a lot more sense if you've seen the show. But Dragnet with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. Remember when Tom Hanks used to be a comedic actor? Yeah, and turns out Hanks is actually a very good actor, but he started his career in screwball comedies, and Dragnet is one of the best of them. But how many times do we go back and see some of those, right? Now I admit I am not seeing most of what's coming out these days, and I'm not entirely sure I care, right? I mean, I would love to see the Minecraft movie, or a Minecraft movie, I guess it is. I'm not going to see it until it hits streaming, at the very least. As I said, I don't go to movies. But I love that I don't have to see it while it's in the theater. I can wait till it's out on video, right? I remember those trips with my dad to the video store. It's like, oh, this movie's finally out on tape. We could buy it, And I remember how surprised I was when we picked up the 1989 Batman VHS, and it was still in theaters. That was a movie that just lingered in the movie theaters. It just had a really long run. It was the first time I'd ever seen a movie out on home video while it was still in theaters. But yeah, it was great to finally to be able to catch up on some of that stuff. Heck, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which I love, that was a movie I don't think I might have probably saw ads for it when it was out in the theaters. It's like, oh, that looks dumb. And then we rented it one day, picked it up from the video store, and it's like, dude, this is most triumphant, right? There's a reason, right? Some of these movies have this great legacy, or sometimes not so great legacy. I have yet to see the third Bill and Ted movie, but I didn't like the second one, so it's I really should get around to seeing Bill and Ted Face the Music. But I love that. I love that I have that opportunity, that I can go and see those things, that I can go back and read those books that I missed. And I encourage you, if there's one of those things that, yeah, I guess I should get around to that one of these days, yeah, make one of those days soon if you can, to catch up on some of that stuff, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a book that you've just missed. That, yeah, I should get around to seeing that one of these days. If you can, make time to make one of those days today. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.